All right. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Larry Schaefer. I'm Vice President of the Board of Directors of the Rhone Rangers. I want to thank you all for joining us for another one of our Zooms. Just as we did with the last Zoom, we're focusing in on a specific region that does a great job growing Rhone varieties. In this case, it is the Sierra foothills in the El Dorado area. So we have some great winemakers here to not only share wines, or share their wines with you, but share stories of the region to better educate you about the region, because it is a region that if you've not visited, you should visit. If you haven't tried the wines, they are very distinctive from the region and different than Rhones grown elsewhere. So you should definitely get your hands on them if at all possible. Clare Kessler is our moderator for today. I'll do a very brief introduction. She's a local of the Sierra foothills. She grew up in El Dorado County. Had a fascination of wine at a young age. I won't ask if that was due to your parents giving it to you or not. That's not my business. She is a graduate of the Viticulture Enology program at UC Davis, had a bachelor from there. She's an assistant winemaker at a winery in the area, Booger, and she's an adjunct professor at Folsom Lake College on viticulture and enology. So well-versed in the subject matter and well-versed in the region. Claire, it's all yours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks everyone for having me. This region is just so near and dear to my heart because we just have so much diversity. It's such a beautiful region. It's also a region that, despite how amazing it is still amazingly humble at the same time. So I have a lot of respect for that. So we do have a couple of slides to introduce us today for everybody. So welcome to the webinar. Our focus will be El Dorado. This is kind of a map to give you an idea of exactly what we're talking about. El Dorado itself is a massive county, but as far as the wineries go, they're kind of concentrated into these segments. We have Greater El Dorado, which goes through Highway 50. A lot of us are located in Apple Hill and Cuneo area. It's a big tourist region. A lot of wineries are condensed in there. If you go south, we also have Pleasant Valley, and even farther south in that Fairplay region as well. And kind of the specialty of us is the high elevation. We like to think of ourselves as the Sierra Highlands. It's kind of an alpine region, and just all of our nooks and crannies, elevation, microclimates just really lends way to a lot of diversity and varieties, including Rhones. So yeah, we have that. Next slide, please. So here's a map to kind of give you guys an idea of just the elevation that we're talking about. So we range anywhere from 1,200 to 3,500 feet in elevation. It's going to be a lot different for ripening, the climates, the hot days and cool nights, UV exposure compared to some of these other wine regions that people might be familiar with, like Napa and Sonoma, which are just barely above sea level. So different kind of monsters, different kinds of challenges, but just a beautiful area to visit. Awesome. Beautiful. So first on our tasting panel today, I would like to introduce Scott Johnson from Element 79, and we'll be tasting the 2021 Viognier.
All right, you want me just to dig into this?
Go for it. Yeah, give us a little bit about you and the winery place.
Yeah, so I've been in, well, my background's, similar probably to everyone's here, degree in viticulture and enology from UC Davis. I've been making wine in El Dorado County for about, since 2008. So kind of landed back in the foothills after college, even though it was not my intention. Just kind of, I really like it up here. I like how it's so different. I like that it's just kind of a little off-piste, and you can kind of do a lot of different things in this area, which makes it pretty entertaining. And also that, the proximity to the hills is the very reason why I'm here for my own personal reasons. But it also happens to grow some great wine. So Element 79 has been a project since 2015 that I've been involved with Les and Sharon Heinzen, and it's been a slow progression where they've got a vineyard, and then we started making a little bit of wine, and then now Les and Sharon went ahead and decided to build a big ass winery. So this will be our first full year in a 10,000 square foot, basically, winery, on the site, with some large capacity, which we're pretty excited about, with some pretty fun winemaking tools. So it's going to be a whole different kind of game carrying forward, which we're really excited. So the vineyard itself sits at right around 2,400 feet in South County, and it's on some kind of interesting soil. I always say that it looks kind of like a sandbox, because we just dug into it with the winery, and it's very just decomposed granite soil. So the vines, just like I said, they hate life on that soil, which makes for some great wine. And there's a couple different areas on this vineyard, that's having some different diversity. We have the higher hilltop vineyard, which is from the Viognier, that we're trying to. I'm sorry, did people actually have the wine? Anyone on this? Or I sorry, I didn't get up to speed on that.
Say, I do. Yes.
But some out there did. So the Viognier is actually grown at the very top of the vineyard. So we have Viognier, Cab Sav, Petite Syrah, and then Syrah, Zinfandel, and now a little Petit Verdot, and Cab Franc too. So a little bit going more on the Bordeaux's, but we also have a little bit of the Rhone. So, and the Syrah is probably my favorite of the varietal we grow on that vineyard, actually. But as we know, it's that Syrah decline that came through is kind of hurting that vineyard a little bit, and then Syrah in general not being a big favored marketable wine out there, but a personal favorite of mine. Super meaty, rich, dark. But anyway, we'll go to the Viognier. So this Viognier, well, itself, this bug flew in my Viognier. This Viognier, you can see the color on this sucker. We kind of make this in a real concentrated manner. So it's picked really late. So we picked this around like 26, 27 bricks, which is a little unconventional. I know what's going on in the market right now. More leaner, more hipster-y vibes. This would be kind of the opposite approach. So maybe it makes it more hipster too in that regard, since it goes that way. But the wine itself, it's again grown. It's on this one's probably grown a little higher, like 2,600 feet up there. And it's on cordon that we train, so we try to balance out. This thing loves to throw a bunch of fruit, and then we're taking this in at like 26 bricks, where it's like it gets real apricot, ripe fruit aromas, not super lean, and also with that accompanies a lot of tannin, and really kind of makes this like a red wine. Drinks like a red wine in a way. So kind of fun on the nose, like it's like honeysuckle, apricot, then you get like a little nectarine in there. It's almost borderlines like you would say that it might have put some whole berries in this, but no, it's just that so damn ripe that it really just kind of extracts a lot. And then on the palate you get just rich, not super acidic, and like full bodied and tannic. So it's kind of a fun, on the heavier reds, not the kind of red you're going to want to have as a real lean cocktail wine, but more of a kind of food wine. So I think, and then also this is barrel aged, and this one I think we did like about, I think we put 35, but I think it was a little more. It's almost like 50% new oak, no racking. So it sits on the lees the whole time. So pretty heavy lees, and pretty heavy oak. So And it's pretty much as big as you can make a red wine without putting 100% new oak on it. But even then, I mean, it's pretty huge. So yeah, that's the idea. Cheers.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I think it has really great mouthfeel. Just tasting it for myself, I think it's really fun that, you mentioned that it's not the typical, what's maybe expected of Viognier currently in the market, but you're willing to, do something different and just have fun with it. I think that really sets us apart in a lot of ways with our winemaking in this region. So that's awesome. And I would like to add also for any of the participants that are here today, if they have any questions, to feel free to place it in the chat, and we will try to sprinkle it along and answer it if we can and when we can for anybody. So perfect. Awesome. Anything else you'd like to add, Scott?
No, that's about it. That about sums it up.
Okay, awesome. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing. So next, we are going to hear from Rob Sinton. He is a winemaker at Starfield Vineyards, and we're going to be tasting your guys' 2022 Hope Rising White Rhone blend. So Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and, about this wine?
Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Yes, okay, great. Okay, my name is Rob Sinton, and Starfield Vineyards started in 2011. I have a degree from UC Davis, like a lot of people here. And yeah, I started out, I do remember the first time I tasted a Rhone variety and was seriously into it, which was, I took a trip to Australia when I was 18, and I tasted some really, really fabulous Syrah from the Barossa Valley. And yeah, there's a picture of the snow from our vineyard, a little bit different than Australian Shiraz. But yeah, so I'm sorry if you hear the dogs too in the background, but they're kind of barking right now. But yeah, so I tasted that. I started tasting wine with my dad, who he also has a degree from UC Davis, and we got into talking about wine kind of on a regular basis in the evenings. And I thought I was going to do other things like go to med school, become an EMT, sort of medically oriented things. And when I was at UC Davis, I became kind of disillusioned with that whole path. And my dad was like, suggested, why not take a wine class? And so I took the intro to wine, and I switched my major after that quarter. And yeah, so then towards the end of my time there, we had started Starfield Vineyards, and we were sourcing fruit from Napa, and kind of wrapping our heads around the whole industry and what was involved in it. And we quickly realized that sourcing fruit in Napa without owning anything was not where we wanted to be. And so we began a pretty exhaustive search for what our wine life would look like. And so we tasted all up and down California primarily, but we also tasted Oregon and Washington. And we were quite inspired by the Rhone varieties in general. And I would say inspired by some of the wineries that are here today. I think two of the producers here were not producing wine at the time that we tasted, but Lava Cap and Miraflores both were producing up here. And so we tasted around there, and we tasted through Tablas Creek wines and Bob Lindquist's wines with Coop. And we really started to fall in love with Rhone varieties. And so we took a trip through the Rhone, and we tasted up and down the Rhone, all the way from Condrieu down to Châteauneuf-du-Pape. And we just, the same problems that we have here, they also deal with. And there's successes and failures just like there are here. And but we were generally affirmed in our belief that this area was prime prime real estate for making really world-class Rhone varieties. So we planted the vineyard in 2013, and that's where some of these wines are coming from. I think actually it's 2014 to 2016 is when these blocks were planted. So they're 6 to 8 years old now. So not mature by some people's standards as far as vines go, but I think they're showing really well. And yeah, all of the whites that we planted predominantly are on this block. You can kind of see it. Oh, there it is. Right there. They're predominantly planted here with a little bit of the Viognier right there. That's not as steep, but the Marsanne and the Viognier are planted on a block that is the steepest block in the vineyard, east facing. And it really is the block that kind of reminded us of Hermitage and some of the wines that came out of that region, like from producers like M. Chapoutier. Yeah, you can see there. So that on the eastern slope, and then we have a little bit of Roussanne tucked away beside the forest. And so that's the blend is the Viognier, Marsanne, and Roussanne. And yeah, so we were really excited to start trying to make these wines. I will say that I think this vintage is an example of just sort of beginning to wrap our heads around how we actually are wanting to treat these grapes, because they are challenging grapes to make. You know, these are challenging grapes to grow. Everyone knows Rhone varieties get powdery mildew really easily. They oxidize really easily in the winery. So you have a lot of challenges that you have to deal with, and you have to decide the best way. But I do think, you know, as Scott was saying, you know, there's like a traditional side of picking these varieties, and then there's an edgier kind, which I do think is, you know, people in Australia are doing, and other kinds of things like that. But so our Viognier for this, we picked pretty traditionally at 24 bricks. It was 5.7 TA, 3.62 pH. The Marsanne was 21 bricks, and the Roussanne was 22 bricks. And we looked to the Viognier to give us kind of a perfumey floral note. That's kind of what we're targeting. And in the Marsanne, we are looking for kind of minerality, delicate kind of green notes, and some spice notes in there, and maybe a little bit of tropical fruit. And the Roussanne really kind of gives the whole wine its richness. And you know, a lot of people describe it as apple or pear or honey, which I always find kind of funny, because we're growing these grapes on an old pear orchard in Apple Hill. So you know, it seems very appropriate to me. And yeah, so this turned out to be a really great wine. The final chemistry on it is 3.58 pH and 6.3 TA. It was tank fermented in stainless steel, aged in 100% neutral French oak for 6 months. And yeah, so, you know, I think really we do get this expressive character that I think is reminiscent of the Rhone, but also distinctive for itself. For, you know, we get that from elevation, so we have a higher UV exposure. You get that increasing sort of sunscreen effect in the grapes, so they're making catechins and things to kind of protect themselves, and that shows up in the wines. And you know, we have the influence of the Sierra Nevada mountains, and that kind of pushes our bud break later into almost like sometimes 1 to 2 months later than the rest of California. I think this year we were like 6 weeks behind or something like that, and maybe in Scott's area they might have been even later. So yeah, so the soils are all acidic soils, which I think really also helps dense up and concentrate these wines, and really bring out some really awesome varietal character. And yeah, so we planted it on, just to go along with the elevation, we planted it on our steepest slope. So the bottom is 10 degrees cooler than the top, with 100 feet elevation difference between them. So between the top and the bottom of the blocks. So yeah, I don't know what else there is to say about it. I mean, I've actually got all of the wines here in front of me because I was just curious I wanted to hear you guys all talk about your wines too. But yeah, I think this is really a great vintage. I really like Rhone whites too, because I think they're one of the whites that you can kind of almost decant in the glass, at least. That they really evolve in your glass over time. I think part of that is because they do tend to oxidize pretty quickly. So you do get, when you kind of wind them up in the winery a little bit, you get a really nice sort of evolution of the wine in the glass that I really love.
Yeah, I agree. After tasting it, I feel like it has lots of layers. In hearing you talk about all the different components, like the tropical and also the pear and apple, and then the body and the green notes as well from all the different wines. I could definitely see that. I think you enjoy it more every sip because you're always getting something from it. So it's just this beautiful, layered, complex wine. So I think you guys did an awesome job. Awesome job.
Thank you so much. That's lovely.
Maybe one day I'll be a wine reviewer. We did have a question in the chat, and I think this kind of applies to everyone. They're wondering if these varieties or these wines available in the LA marketplace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, so I can answer that really quick.
Sure.
Currently, our wines are only available on the website or at our tasting room in Placerville.
Awesome.
We are going into wholesale soon, but that is a work in progress.
It's tricky. Yeah.
Yes.
And as far as I know, for everybody, every winery that's represented here, I believe could ship to LA. I'm pretty sure if people were interested and wanted to purchase on websites. So anyone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that is the case. And then I did want to circle back to you really quick, Scott. We did have someone have a question about your Viognier, about where the tannins came from in the Viognier.
Well, I think that's probably mainly, the variety itself is tannic, but we kind of accentuate them by making the way we pick it. So these grapes that are, grown on, pretty heavy, high UV. So they do tend to get a little sunburn. And then when they get that, they get a little bit of that, it accentuates it. And then of course, picking it really late, where you do have a certain amount of raisins in this as well. And you basically, the skins, I think, are kind of falling apart at this time too. So you're really just accentuating the whole, being kind of, quote unquote, overripe. And that's why I think this makes this fun, because we kind of have a spectrum of a wine drinking process. So we have like a very light, stainless, sorry, not stainless, no ML, very light oak Chardonnay. And then you have this to kind of bounce that off of, and we have some sparkling wines, and then you have this to kind of bounce off of when, if you're doing a tasting experience, it makes it fun where you have this like monster. So instead of just making I think it's always fun to look at your spectrum of wines and make them in different ways, just because I think it's fun and it makes the consumer have a good time when they're tasting, when you have like, not beholden to one style. And a lot of that in me, I think is just probably one, I get bored easy. And second of all, it's being a custom crush winemaker for the majority of, my winemaking career has just really always allowed me to have, zero bias on how I make wine. So, but yeah, the point is that the tannin comes from just in general, huge extraction through the whole process, and a little from the oak too.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you. It was very informative. Awesome. And then I will be asking for prices. Scott, do you know offhand price of your Viognier by retail?
I don't remember offhand.
That's okay.
Sure
we can look on the website.
Yeah.
No worries. All righty. So next we have Mr. Nolan Jones from Lava Cap Winery, and we're going to be tasting your 2020 Grenache today. So Nolan, would you tell us a little bit about you and your wine?
Yeah, hi everybody. Thanks for hosting me, Rhone Rangers. This is a nice activity to get together and taste through what I think is one of the most distinct regions in the state, both in terms of wine character and history. Lava Cap is my family's winery, so I'm the third generation. I'm the winemaker here. My grandfather started it, and as the name would imply, he was drawn to the site's volcanic soil. He was a geologist by training, looked across the state and found a spot that had really, really interesting volcanic deposits. They're found throughout the Syrah foothills. We were able to find a nice 80-acre chunk of it. And the soil profile sits on top of what you see in a lot of the rest of the county, which is granitic soil. And I'll talk about that when I get to the Grenache. But we've been making wine since 1986. We planted our vineyards in 1980. We've grown organically, so from kind of the standard at the time Chardonnay, Cabernet, Zinfandel, into the Rhones. Our first planting was Syrah, and we were really happy with the expression we got out of that. So we decided to explore kind of the larger variety of Rhone options, including Grenache. We also planted some Marsanne, Roussanne, Viognier, and since then the Rhones have really taken I think a strong foothold in our portfolio, and they're near and dear to, I know, a lot of our consumers' heart because of their unique expression. And I think our and this is true across the foothills, a really I think regionally specific expression of all of the Rhone grapes, whether or not you're tasting Viognier, Syrah, Grenache. I think our elevation really brings out some distinct characters that are unique to our region. A lot of that has to do with, as other people have alluded to, our climate, which is moderated by our elevation. So we have really cool springs, we have relatively cool falls. It's a warm region, but it's only warm for a short period of time. So we have a really different ripening window, and we have a ton of sun. And I think when you look at the climatic similarities of where we are to some of the central parts of the Rhone, it's pretty similar, and you get a pretty, I think you get a pretty, I don't know, you get a unique expression, but you get a wine that is showcases the fun flavors of Rhone varieties across all the grapes. So, and I see that in everything we make. With our Grenache, it's an interesting outlier in our portfolio in that it's on the one piece of soil that is both volcanic and granitic. So our vineyard spans 27 to about 2,300 feet. This is grown at 2,300 feet, where the soil horizon goes from volcanic to granitic. So it's almost like a top layer of volcanic soil on top of the granitic bedrock. It's also the coolest spot in our vineyard. So if you look across El Dorado County, there's a lot of ridges and a lot of really deep valleys that run east to west. They have the effect of pulling air off of the ridge lines, the Sierra Nevada ridge lines. Our vineyard sits on a bowl above one of these deep valleys, so we get a really dramatic airflow pattern in the evenings and in the mornings. In the mornings, it comes from the west off the Central Valley, so it warms up relatively quick in the morning, and then in the evenings we get a really strong downdraft off the Sierra Nevadas. So we get some really interesting air patterns that lead to some nice cooling in the evening, but really strong differences within the vineyard in terms of daytime highs and nighttime lows. So this is from a spot in the vineyard that has this, I think, the strongest kind of inversion effect, where the nights are the coolest, and the nights are, and the cooling sticks around for longer than our ridge tops. So it ripens with relatively moderate sugars for Grenache. I mean, we pick it as late as we can normally, and we're lucky if we can get it to 26. It's handled as gently as possible. We don't really do a whole lot of anything crazy in the cellar. We do a pretty long barrel aging on it for a Grenache. We do 2 years in neutral French oak. We don't put it through ML, so this did not go through ML. So we try to preserve some of the some of the natural acidity of the grape. It comes in with some higher acids, even at lower sugars, or some higher pHs, lower acids, even at lower sugars. So try to preserve some of that. And then the structure of the wine itself, I think, is a combination of that extended barrel aging and kind of the natural phenolic intensity you get from high elevation grapes. So it has the ability, I think, to age for that long in barrel, and then kind of counter to what a lot of people think about Grenache, aged really well in bottle because of that phenolic richness you get from fruit grown at high elevation through its exposure to UV light, and I think that the relatively intense spring and falls we get up here. These vines have a really distinct ripening window, and they're exposed to climatic conditions that are unique to high elevation sites. So you get this phenolic structure that lends itself to a wine that pairs well with food. It expresses great natural acidity, and it has the structure to age. And in terms of aromas and flavors, it's a really pretty wine. It's light. It's never super dark, but it's got this beautiful bouquet of red fruit. So cranberry, boysenberry. It's always on that kind of fresher red fruit spectrum, but it's really aromatic, really perfumey, a really pretty wine. And yeah, especially as we go into the warmer season, something that I always grab.
That's awesome.
I think that's it, unless anyone has any questions. I'll leave a link to the wine in the chat if anyone wants to go read more about it. But it's $28 on our website. It's not distributed, so it's all direct to consumer.
Perfect. Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, I am amazed with the no ML on that. I was not expecting that. It's amazingly smooth. So I think what you're talking about with the elevation and the soil and everything coming together, I'm not sure if you coined this phrase, but I know there's something called the Syrah spice. I'm hearing that's going around as a description for the wines of this highland region and what's incorporated into it from the terroir and everything. But I really enjoyed that Grenache. It's really nice to see a Grenache as a single variety. I feel like it can be so underrated sometimes. It's just so easy to toss it into a blend, and it's nice to see it as the star of its own show. So
yeah, it's a fun one.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Nolan. I appreciate it. So next, we have a 2019 Estate Syrah. We're going to hear from Ashlee Cuneo, who is a general manager at Miraflores Winery. Hey, Ashlee, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. Awesome.
Good. Well, let's see. Where should I begin? I am not a winemaker, but I am the general manager of Miraflores, and I've been here since 2015, working at Miraflores, and then I became the GM in 2016. I'm from Sonoma County. I'm born and raised in Santa Rosa, and I decided I wanted to become a sommelier. So I ended up going to the French Culinary Institute in Campbell, just south of San Jose. And my family had moved up to this area in El Dorado County, and just from visiting them, I loved this area, and so I decided I wanted to plant some roots here. So in my search, after I became a sommelier, I was a wine director at a restaurant in Mountain View, and I also sold wine with a distributor throughout the Bay Area. And in my search up here for wineries, I discovered Miraflores. I met Victor Alvarez, who is the original and still the current owner of the winery, and just fell in love with El Dorado wines. And the winery itself is located in the Pleasant Valley region of Placerville. So it's us and now 3 other wineries in the area. There's Sierra Vista, Holly's Hill, and Narrowgate. And there used to be a Riga Wines, but he sold a few years ago. But Sierra Vista was originally owned by John McCready, and he was one of the founders of the Rhone Rangers, along with Randall Graham of Bonnie Doon. So this little area of Pleasant Valley was really kind of pioneered by John, and that's how the Rhone varietals got planted in this area, was by him. So Miraflores, we've been here, we planted our vines back in 1998. Our flagship wine was our Syrah, and so that's why I chose it for today's tasting. I think it's, as Scott was saying, it's kind of, Syrah's become a little bit more, a little less appreciated by the general public, but I think when it comes to just how incredible of a wine it is, it's really one of those kind of underdogs, I would say, but really just a beautiful, beautiful wine. And I would say that this particular vintage, the 2019, for us, it tastes very similar to me to a Northern Rhone Syrah. There's a lot of aromatics of black pepper, violet. I get some wet soil characteristics to this wine. A little bit of dried thyme, blackberry. And then the reason why it reminds me of a Northern Rhone wine is because it has that great kind of bacon, cured meat characteristic to it. Just a really nice mouthfeel. Yeah, we also, like the rest of us, we're high elevation as well. So this Syrah vineyard is planted on a southeast facing slope, 2,600 feet in elevation. Victor likes to pick the grapes a little bit at a higher brix level. So these grapes were picked at 27 brix. He really wants that big, bold fruit to come through. But where we're located, we do get quite a bit of snow at our location. So we were actually closed 8 days this year due to snow. We had 3 feet covering our drive coming in. So we get very cool in the evening. So we are able to develop really beautiful levels of acidity, like all of us here. And we are able to develop a lot of structure with our wines, and they're very ageable as well. So we actually we had our 2003 Syrah, the flagship wine. We were selling that up until about 3 years ago, and it was still tasting really beautiful. So we do pride ourselves on our Petite Syrahs, and Viognier as well for our white Rhone varietal. But we do have 16 different varietals planted on our property, so pretty wide array of grapes, ranging from Bordeaux varietals to Rhones. We also have Barbera as well, Malbec, which is our winemaker's specialty, and Tempranillo as well. So very diverse selection, almost too diverse. It becomes a little bit hard to sell all of them sometimes when we have this big lineup on our tasting room shelf, but we enjoy it.
That's
we say we have
awesome.
something for every palate. So
That's awesome. It's a winemaker's paradise to be able to work with so many different varieties. It's hard to get bored.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of El Dorado County in general. I think we're able to grow so many different varietals, so many different microclimates.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. Very cool. We do have a question in the chat about the Syrah, and with picking it at 27 brix, do you know by chance what the alcohol is on that wine?
I do. It's 14.7.
Okay. Awesome. Well, it's amazingly velvety and smooth, and just like you said, the full body. Just after me tasting it personally, I think it's a really fun balance of fruit and spice. It's just really, evenly, I guess, woven together, is what I'm trying to say. But I think that's very nice.
Great.
Awesome.
Glad you're enjoying.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Miraflores Syrah, feel pretty good. Okie dokie. Well, next on our list, last but not least, we have Edio Vineyards Frank's Blend 2020, which is a red Rhone blend from Peter Delfino, winemaker. Peter, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everybody. So yeah, my name's Peter Delfino. A little bit about my background. I'm different than everybody else here, as I actually went to Cal Poly SLO and got my degree in enology from down there. And I don't want to say it's better than UC Davis, but not just kidding. They're in my eyes.
Well, the new winery down there is pretty
It's
badass.
pretty cool. I know it wasn't
At the
there when I
school.
went there,
I
but
know,
I feel like I helped pave the way for that new program. But yeah, no. So and Cal Poly is a big deal in my life. My siblings all went there. My mom went there. My grandpa went there. So we've been going there forever. We love it down there. But we always knew that I was coming home. Sierra Foothills is where I grew up, what I love. Our Edio Vineyards label is relatively new. Our first vintage was 2018. But we've been in agriculture up here since the 1960s. That's Edio, who the winery is named after. That's my grandfather. He moved up here and he got really into agriculture, and he was an ag commissioner up here, and he helped. Before then, there was all pears up here, and there's something that was called pear decline. Rob talked about how his vineyard was on a pear orchard. Pear decline came, took out all the pears. They needed something else. So he came up with apples, and he was instrumental in starting Apple Hill, which is agritourism. We see millions of people a year for a 3-month period. So that's kind of what we've been about. But he grew up in St. Helena on a dry farm vineyard, and his passion has always been grapes, wine grapes. So he always had about like 15 acres of grapes that he sold to local wineries, Boger being the main one. Him and Greg Boger were best friends growing up. We just been Apple Hill Farm. And then my dad kind of took over from there. And then after my dad ran it, me and my siblings like, well, what are we going to do? So we all decided to start the wine program and actually create a label. And I did the enology. My brother did viticulture, and my sister, she does wine business. So we have all facets. There's a picture of all three of us up there. So that's just a little history about our place. But for the Sierra Foothills, we always talk about the diversity of the area. Elevation is what drives the diversity. We meet together all the time and talk about what causes this diversity. Our slopes, our elevation, our soils. We could grow very many different varieties, and Rhone varieties being one of them. And that was one thing when I was down in San Luis Obispo, all I grew was Pinot Noir and made Chardonnay. That's all we could grow. So when I came back home, I was really happy that I got to deal with a lot more varieties, and Rhones have always been my favorite varieties to work with. So we have our Frank's blend, actually, named Frank. We're a family place. We named it after my grandfather's father, my great grandfather. He worked the vineyard in St. Helena too, farmer his whole life. So I'm a 4th generation vineyard grape farmer, I guess, which is pretty cool. But Frank's blend, it's our only Rhone blend that we do. I kind of get to take the best of 3 different varieties. As we know, the California GSM, that's kind of what this is based after, but I chose Mourvèdre to be the base. So it's 65% Mourvèdre, 20% Grenache, 15% Syrah. I'll talk a little bit about Mourvèdre since it's the main portion of the blend, and it's a variety that I think really shows well up in the Sierra Foothills. So on our site, we're sitting at about 2,800 feet. So we're one of the higher vineyards up here. And we actually have a granitic soil, which is mainly up here, you get a lot of volcanic, as Nolan was talking about, but this particular vineyard sits in granitic. It's crazy. The diversity up here is, our vineyard is about 2 miles as a crow's fly from Lava Cap's vineyard, where they're mainly volcanic, but we're mainly granitic, very close, very different. Our slopes are very different, and even sometimes our temperatures can be extremely different. So that just plays into the diversity of this region. But this particular Mourvèdre, sits in very well drained, rocky soil. It's a late ripener, which is very actually beneficial up here because of our elevation. We get a lot of spring frost. So, or late butter, sorry. So it'll bud late, which we're never worried about any frost damage with it. We've got hit by frost in the past, and the Mourvèdre always makes it through, which is really important. It could be a problem that it's a late ripener because as you saw in some of those pictures, we do get a lot of snow, and we've actually had to harvest the Mourvèdre right because it was going to snow. Maybe we would have loved it to sit on the vine a little bit longer, but we were like, we're not gonna be able to get a crew and a tractor out in a foot of snow, so we picked it before. But yeah, Mourvèdre, I've always loved the structure of this wine. This Mourvèdre actually produces really juicy tannins, something that I've texturally always liked about it. I'm a big texture guy in wines. But and then about the Franks blend, so Mourvèdre's the base. I got to use Grenache to help its nose. It's really got this elegant nose, we got a lot of spices, peppermint, we get baking spices on it. But then I would say for my style, I grew up, I learned to make Pinot Noir, which is very delicate, limiting oxygen exposure, punch downs only. So when I came up here and started making Rhone varieties, I treated all my wines as if they were Pinot Noir. And I learned that Grenache really did well. Mourvèdre got super reductive. So I've learned now we have to incorporate a lot more oxygen, and it kind of freaks me out as a Pinot Noir maker, using that much oxygen and that many pump overs and that much sitting in tank just to get this reduction gone. But starting to figure it out. And so, yeah, the Mourvèdre is really showing well. And then, yeah, so, and then we talked about Syrah spice a bit. I feel like I get it in this wine. I don't know if you do. But it's something that we're trying to wrap our head around. And I know it has to do with terroir and everything, but more and more, as we know through smoke, grapes could be they're sponges. They absorb smells, they absorb, anything. And as you go up in elevation, all of a sudden the local flora will switch to pines and cedars and oak. And our vineyards, as I well know, all their other vineyards of everybody else, sit right next to near forests, like full pine, cedars everywhere. I do think they play a part. It's not just the barrels that are incorporating these flavors, it's the local flora around. But yeah, that's this wine, a really delicate style. I really like we had the Syrah just for length and depth and color, but I think it's kind of our play on a GSM as a MGS. So yeah, I think it. And then price for this wine is a 62, so it's on our higher end. We are just direct to consumer through the website, through the tasting room, and I really think that's important. I know all of us have great tasting rooms, and we like to showcase off our views, and because we have the steep slopes and the mountains and everything. So yeah.
That's awesome. So, Peter, if you don't mind me asking, what is your guys's case production for this Franks blend?
Franks blend, we do only about 200 cases of this. We only make 4,000 cases every year, so we're definitely on the more boutique, smaller side. But yeah, we're small, and we like to stay small. We got other things that we have to worry about because we also grow apples, which are completely different than grapes. Way more difficult.
Oh geez, gotta keep that resume diverse. But that is awesome. So yeah, it's a very small lot, specialty, very close attention to detail kind of production.
Exactly.
Yeah, I really like this blend, and I do have to confess, I'm very proud of myself. I did not cut any bodies open trying to open it with the wax top.
You got to go right into it. You
yes,
act like it's not there. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. I was like, I know what I'm supposed to do. I'm just gonna go straight in for it, and it was actually very, very easy. Just the key is just don't overthink it. Just don't overthink it.
Okay, if you try to chop it off, it's not going to work.
Yes. Yeah. I really liked what you had to say about the Syrah spice. So I actually teach a class on wines of the Syrah foothills. And in that class, we tried to determine with the students what qualities do we have that sets us apart from other regions. And something that we have been finding too, we'd never called it Syrah spice, but I think we're going to start calling it Syrah spice, is we've been finding some mint and, like you said, some pine qualities in the wine. So it's really cool to kind of verify that and see that come
I know.
along.
Me and
Yeah.
all the guys on the panel, we are all part of a group and we taste, and we've been trying to identify it too. And yeah, we call it Sierra Spice, but it's like very Christmas tree,
Mm-hmm.
just Christmas spices. And
Mm-hmm.
and
Woodsy.
yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, and you will get it in wines that are, I mean, I got it in Nolan's Grenache, and I'm pretty sure
Mm-hmm.
that is no new oak on it. I'm not positive.
No, yeah, zero new oak on really anything we make. So
yeah, and so
Nice.
and you would think that that might have some oak on it, but it's
Mhm.
not tannin, more from the nose. So
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very cool. Well, we do have a question for everybody here. We are being asked by our participants if anyone here makes cider as well.
I do. We have a cider program. We do 3 different ciders. We do them all barrel fermented, dry, and then we sparkle them too. So yeah, we do, and I'm pretty sure Scott does.
Yeah, we make a we make a lot of cider. Probably gonna make like 50,000 gallons of cider. So it's something I didn't really know how to do up until a couple of years ago, but popular right now. So we do flavored ciders. We do some, so it's kind of more consumer forward flavored ciders we do, and then we also do some more like kind of boutique-y like heritage ciders, Macintosh, Ravenstein, Newtown, Pippin. But like Peter said, our ciders are very dry, kind of more sparkling wine influenced. So dry, all stainless, kind of drink a little more like Prosecco is kind of how we're targeting our ciders, so that kind of jumping on that low calorie, but still flavor forward, but not fermented sugar, like a Truly kind of vibe, so it's a little more crafty. So, yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, does anyone have any comments, questions, confessions? You doing okay? Very cool. So we just have a couple minutes left within our hour here, and I would like to take the opportunity to talk about the Sierra Highlands Mountain Summit tasting event. It's going to be on Sunday, June 4th. So all of you guys are listening out there, mark your calendars for Sunday, June 4th. I'm going to put a link also in the chat to invite you guys to get tickets if you are interested. But it is $60 for early ticket price, $70 for standard. It's going to be at Edio Vineyards, which is a beautiful new facility. We got to talk to Peter today, which is awesome, from 1 to 4 p.m. And this is going to be an experience kind of like this, but in person. So you guys will actually get to taste wine poured from the winemakers and other special people, of course. Maybe Ashlee might be there pouring as well. And very intimate, very cool experience. You get to talk to the winemakers themselves and try their wine. So I will post a link in the chat for that. But otherwise, I think we are wrapping up here. Anyone like to add anything else? Go ahead.
I'm just going to step in and I want to thank Claire for moderating. I want to thank all the winemakers and participants for taking part. Thank you for providing your insight in a region that most people are not familiar with, and hopefully they'll become more familiar with it now. I also wanted to let everyone know that the next Zoom we're going to do is on whites and rosés, and that'll be at later part of June. We'll send more information out. And also we are having our summer gala up in Sonoma in June. Information can be found on the Rhone Rangers website. I have a feeling some of the wineries that are on this panel will be taking part, as well as wineries from throughout the state of California. So it's going to be a great tasting and a great evening, celebrating Fred Klein as our Lifetime Achievement Award winner that night. So thank you all for coming. And again, Claire and participants, thank you all. You guys all did a great job.